and where to expect an anomaly. Our storms were intentionally being drained of energy and dissipated on macro and micro levels. But where were they getting their material, their fuel, their medium to complete all of this? Aerosol spraying. On August 1st, I walked outside, looked up, and the only thing on the sky was one of those large white planes streaming across the sky, laying down material that lingered and spread. I had seen these while living in New Jersey in 2003. I had noticed them in New Orleans in 2005. In June, when I started looking up, I had noticed them every day. Was it possible that this was the source? This is the day I caught one on camera, clearer and closer than before. At this point, I was setting up video cameras and letting them roll. I could always have a look later while editing. By studying my own video and satellite photographs, I knew that capturing these in the right light would pay off at some point. I could see them within the clouds as shadows, but with hazy edges that sometimes poked out. I could pick out the smaller ones in the video as phantom ships. I set up this camera, turned away for about a minute, turned back, looked up, and saw this black diamond shape just sitting there at maybe no more than 200 yards. I could see it clearer with my eyes than what's in the video, the shape itself and the shadow it cast onto the thin cloud veil. This random look shot had me standing there telling it in a low voice, "I told you bastards not to get in the wrong light, or I will find you." Infrared. By knowing that certain conditions of light was allowing a way to capture these, I started looking into filters, light waves, and possible ways to see through the intense shiny haze that blankets the sky. Most of my videos taken on bright days I could not watch in the sky at the time because of the risk of retina damage. It's that bad. I then created an infrared light video camera, one that could see in light above 760 nanometers or 950 or 1000. All of the videos and still shots that are red, purple, amber, or even blue are colored solely in a light wave that we cannot perceive. It was now obvious that I not only had plenty of these craft in my video, but I had them dating back to July. I then scoured the videos for the repeating patterns, the triangular holes, the cloud bursts, the sharp edges, the wind patterns, the stationary clouds, etc. Picking out the shapes at this point became easy. Why? I knew what to expect and where to find it. Diagramming the photographs as I found the shapes became a hobby. Of the small craft involved, there are several different shapes. I've drawn them out the best I could. It was wrapping my head around the scale of the larger craft that the smaller craft attached to that took some getting used to. But the bits and pieces, the patterns and the repetition, putting two and two together, all began to build a bigger picture. Saturation. After adjusting the black and white levels in the photos for months, adjusting the color saturation of the photos a shot, I pushed the saturation envelope past the normal photography guidelines. It opened up another realm in terms of trying to document these craft. I should mention that all pictures of gray clouds, like these, also have full color information there. You just have to bring it out by setting the saturation of a photograph to 80% or higher to see the effect. So the drones, the kites, whatever, showed certain color patterns. The small craft show up as warm yellows, oranges, and even reds. Red and white lights started becoming evident. After locating a craft in the photograph, and then enhancing the saturation, light green puffs began showing up behind them in their wake. Was this further evidence of a propulsion system? Probably. I then did a quick study on what was reportedly the main ingredients of what was being sprayed daily from above: barium, strontium, and aluminum. Apparently, a naturally gray-colored strontium quickly oxidizes with air contact and becomes a rusty color. And barium, a combustible, burns a light green color. Is there a color connection? Diagramming these shapes, the sharp cloud edges, the reoccurring cloud shapes, the strange shadows within the clouds, the shadows that appear to be caused by thin air, the strange identical cloud tops, eventually led me to find something else. Turbines. Finding the turbines was the propulsion, the glue I needed. That occurred in late November by finding a blimp. I realized at this point that I was essentially looking at engine exhaust. I could now find the propulsion systems by looking for their identical shapes in other video and by following their exhaust. It was sitting there all along. Finding more turbines led to finding more propulsion systems that linked up with the sharp edges and smaller craft. The larger one finally revealed itself. The shape. A routine combination of a square corner thruster, then one of 4 identical round thrusters, followed by the second identical round, then a round middle propulsion engine of a different sorts, then the third identical round thruster, the fourth identical, and then the opposite side square rear corner thruster. Over and over and over. Corner thruster. Over and over and over. The same shapes. I can show you this shape 1,000 times in my video and my still shots. This common shape is also similar in ways to the shape of the back end of a B-2 stealth bomber. This part of the presentation will show diagramming that I've done over video that I've recorded. The video, which is sped up about 20 times faster than normal, will pause periodically to show where the craft are, and then resume. Are the diagrams 100% correct? No. I can look at them again now and see that I missed a few or mislabeled some here and there. Most of the videos have a general contrast or auto level filters applied. Remember, they are almost invisible. Their cloaking is not perfect, especially within the infrared range of light. The smallest chips usually show up as small white clouds, which appear and reappear, or emit cloud material, or do not emit cloud material. I will explain this in a later part of the presentation. For now, just sit back and watch. I hope that by this point you can see the irregularities yourself and be able to start picking out the craft before I point them out. Also, these craft are above not only New Orleans, Another telltale feature that gave it away is the fan-shaped engine that sits towards the back of the hull. This propulsion system does not point to the back of the craft, as it sits about 10 to 20 feet away from the back end. It points perpendicularly up and down and can be seen on both the top and the bottom of the craft. The surface is surprisingly full of details. Paneling edges are almost common to find in still shots and even video at times. The V-shaped support beams that run from 2 points at the rear to a single point in the front have also been documented. Some areas of the back edge are very blocky, and some rectangular pylons have been seen. The 2 rear vertical stabilizers are thick, meaning their edges are not sharp, at least towards the back. They have much more width than you'd expect on an aircraft. There is a reason for this, which I will explain later. The original plans for the Aurora mentioned a stainless steel outer surface. I have also read about either one side being painted black or only the front edges and rear edges being painted black. As for the actual color and the normal visual spectrum, I have no idea. A word about the name Aurora. I believe that the name Aurora does not necessarily refer to a certain aircraft alone, although it may. However, I think the term refers to the system of craft and their mission, the design principle, not what's stenciled on the hull. At one point, I thought the main aircraft, I don't care if it's called Senior Citizen, the SR-72, the XSR-73,000, or the Big Wedge of Cheese. I just knew what I was seeing was real. I could not care about the individual names, but the term weather machine sufficed. On the left is what you see in the sky, or what they want you to see. Fluffy white clouds. On the right is actually what is there. A main aircraft hovering or moving slowly with its nose up in the air. The cloud-like material, probably strontium, into the air, while the cloud top-shaped rear edge churns the material into billowing cloud formations. I believe that it's the 4 round identical engines on the back that emit this material. However, the stream that comes from the back. On the left is what you see in the sky, or what they want you to see. Fluffy white clouds. On the right is actually what is there. A main aircraft hovering or moving slowly with its nose up in the air. At the bottom of the craft, jets emit the cloud-like material, probably strontium, into the air, while the cloud top-shaped rear edge churns the material into billowing cloud formations. I believe that it's the 4 round identical engines on the back that emit this material. However, the stream that comes from the back forms into striations of 8 to 10 lines before it completely billows into a single cloud unit. These devices are literally spraying clouds. The center large fan-shaped turbine serves several purposes. 1, it stabilizes the tilt of the aircraft while in this low-level mission. 2, it also emits the cloud-like material as exhaust that is vented ahead of the aircraft or behind it. 3, this coil. On the left is what you see in the sky, or what they want you to see. Fluffy white clouds. On the right is actually what is there. A main aircraft hovering or moving slowly with its nose up in the air. At the bottom of the craft, jets emit the cloud-like material, probably strontium, into the air, while the cloud top-shaped rear edge churns the material into billowing cloud formations. I believe that it's the 4 round identical engines on the back that emit this material. However, the stream that comes from the back forms into striations of 8 to 10 lines before it completely billows into a single cloud unit. These devices are literally spraying clouds. The center large fan-shaped turbine serves several purposes. 1. It stabilizes the tilt of the aircraft while in this low-level mission. 2. It also emits the cloud-like material as exhaust that is vented ahead of the aircraft or behind it. 3. This coil turbine is electrically charged. It is the center of electricity and probably gravity for the airframe and its satellite ships. It acts as a magnetic slingshot for the smallest of the craft. The various craft. As mentioned, the smaller craft were fairly easy to find. In the sky are small, sharp, and repetitive. Scale has always been a difficult thing to decipher. I had nothing to compare them to in the sky until very recently. However, seeing the small craft is something that is not uncommon these days. I see enough to gauge that the size is about 10 feet across. They zip in and out of the clouds at a few miles per hour. I've read that the manta-shaped craft are about 50 feet long. The manta craft are about 1/3 to 1/4 the length of the large host craft, which makes the large one about 200 feet long. Finding the craft and satellite photographs has possibly confirmed this assessment. After having the time to research the possibility of information on these small craft already being available, I realized that yes, some of the descriptions I've been outlining fall in line with photographs of secret aircraft projects. Therefore, an aviation expert minutes to tell me which was which, but any aviation expert I have contacted seems to be working for another cause. The lineup of ships are as follows. There is the huge blimp pictured at the top right. The largest craft of this system type is the aircraft carrier, the host, the base of the two-stage system. The next size down is very similar to the larger craft, but not in the shape of the front, but the similarities in the back. It seems to have only 2 of the 4 identical round engines found on the larger craft. However, it does also have the square corner thrusters that the large one has, and also has a center fan-like engine that shoots up and down perpendicular to the surface. I would guess that one was designed after the other, just at a different scale. This size craft is found almost always attached to the rear sides when it is docked. Wasn't there mention of an Aurora 1 and 2? Not that the names matter. Though one of the new craft to emerge in video has been what is commonly deemed as the TR-3B. Its regular triangle shape is different from most of the others in that it does not look like an aircraft from the Batman series. It attaches to the large craft on the underside near the rear. Then there are the variety of craft about the same size, but come in different shapes and are probably experimental aircraft from the span of decades. These can not only attach to the large aircraft carrier itself, but also attach to, recharge, and propel from the middle-sized vehicles. It's a chain. The next size up is the launch platform for the next smaller size down. And when they pop off, usually in an arc, they emit the cloud-making material stored within their hulls. Then there are what I term as runners. These are probably the latest technologies, small, compact, and very fast. I've seen several shapes not only with my naked eye, but in many videos. It was slowing down the video that revealed these. I initially brushed them off as mosquitoes, dragonflies, gnats, etc. But once I tracked them, I noticed a pattern. They run between the main aircraft carriers at a fairly fast rate, and some are faster than others. Most of the time, their paths pivot or change course when they get very near the center coil. It's like they're touching base with the ship. Sometimes they skip along only the back engines of the large craft, and sometimes only along the sides, and then move on to the next ship. I believe what they are doing is running airborne electrical currents between each Aurora system. Why? That will be covered in the section called the transfer. Cloud busting. The craft drones, or cloud bombs, are launched from the larger ships into storm fronts, storm energy concentrations, and individual clouds to disrupt their natural developments. It is my belief that barium and strontium, which are the main components of chemtrails and both anti-moisture materials, are used in concentrated doses by the craft to achieve this effect. How it is collected through the air will be covered in the transfer section as well. All ships seem to have the ability to create clouds to some extent. However, the large ships use their smaller satellite craft to create cloud cover to hide them, probably with the use of strontium. Imagine a planet with several moons revolving around it, making smoke. I believe that this role is most useful in conjunction with aircraft that may not have the ability to generate cloud cover, like the blimps I've captured. To fabricate cloud layers. They can disintegrate clouds and they can make clouds. Though the small craft can make clouds, the effect is really achieved with the use of the large main craft, which can hold much more cargo than the smaller ships. The large ship also acts as an electrical energy source and supply depot for the smaller ships. But the large clouds, the ones that near the size of natural clouds, are created by the large 200-foot-long aircraft. Reconnaissance. Remember the original role of the Aurora? It was meant to be not only a high-altitude bomber, but also a low reconnaissance aircraft. Though the large craft are too large to descend to ground level without being noticed, the smallest of its drones can. They can descend to the tops of trees silently and gather information via onboard Wi-Fi collection, microphones, cameras, sensors, whatever that can transmit in real time. Approximately 3 feet in height and delta-shaped, with a flat landing surface at the rear. Their LED hull panels can also mimic its surroundings, such as tree branches. However, filming in infrared light sometimes negates that effect. A note about color. As an artist, I am pretty in tune with color hues, etc. From July 2011, I noticed the different cloud colors, independent of lighting situation, sunrises and sunsets. Here's what I conclude. First, natural clouds are white, made solely of moisture. Sure, there are probably slight variations, but nothing like what's up there. I still see natural white clouds up until today, but only at a distance. They don't seem to make it over the city very much. Instead, they are blocked by the yellowish gray clouds, suspected to be strontium, which rusts when mixed with the atmosphere. The haze, the blanketing layers that encompass the city almost daily from high in the atmosphere, are silvery, but never white in any lighting situation. This is probably the hologram layer, which I will cover later. Another color I've noticed is a darker bluish material. This seems to emanate from at least one source, the centered engine on the rear of the largest aircraft. This engine seems to be the one responsible for maintaining the aircraft's height above the ground. It is said that the anti-gravitational devices used are 98% efficient. So one upward thruster would be needed to make up for the 2% weight. Also, the exhaust port on this thruster seems to be different from the 4 cylindrical thrusters nearby. The exhaust is usually seen as a single downward pointing stream of whitish or bluish material. A note about texture. Not only does the color give away the illusion, but the texture does as well. I believe that the anti-moisture material released into the air is electrified. Since all of the ships are electrified, this makes sense. Also, it may account for what I've termed spastic clouds, the gray frayed ones. Natural clouds are rounded, white, and fluffy. Theirs are frayed, gray, and dense. Surfaces of these craft, which either use light bending technology or LED panel technology or something else, are not perfect. Your eye will tell you that there is something wrong with the picture, but you are not yet sure what it is. Or photographs. I've seen countless photographs taken in many different spots around the globe that exhibit these glitches. If you photograph chemtrails, you probably have these simulated examples. A dark shadow on a sometimes curved chemtrail, or what I call a nose bump, or small wind currents directing the flow of the material in a certain direction. These are not your Greek sylphs. It's mid-air resupply. This is the part that really bothers me. If it wasn't bad enough that the main components of chemtrails do alter the weather, and we do breathe it in, but to have another deceptive use for the material in the air? Holograms? Why? A YouTube search for hologram faces in the sky will result in some pretty convincing evidence worldwide. As for what I've come to realize, it's yes, there are holograms in my sky, and some look like gods and skulls, while others resemble dragons, cows, and pigs. Since I have still not gone through all the footage, I would bet that there are more in there. Also, I've seen faces in the sky with my own eyes, but sometimes they're hard to find on the video. I have seen some in video that I did not see with my own eyes. I've been wanting to present this video for quite some time. This was recorded 5 days after I saw the first craft for certain. It was game on at that point. I recorded a lot of video that month. During this period, they would show up at about 8 a.m. every morning, as they currently do. I tracked their clusters on the radar. Sometimes they would come from the west, sometimes southeast, and sometimes the north. This was facing west. As usual, I didn't notice the specifics until I sped up the video later. Watch the cloud on the right. I call this the locomotive formation for obvious reasons. The cloud material is ejected from the front of the large basecraft, the aircraft carrier. This material is churned by the smaller craft above it, creating the illusion of a natural cloud. Smaller craft fly in advance of the system, emitting their own material and obscuring the front of the main craft. They come in pretty low in this video. It has given me a chance to go back and detail out the smaller ships, which were identified before, but not fully fleshed out in 3D just yet. Once the smoke and mirrors are removed, this is what the formation looks like. If you have not had a chance to see What Is in Our Skies, Part 1 through 9, found on my channel, please do. This video will make a lot more sense after you see those. This was recorded on January 15th, 2012, right before I noticed the God face and skull face in the sky. I then filmed the faces more directly for a bit and then took still shots. This is explained in Part 8 of What Is in Our Skies. I did not see the next anomaly in the sky while filming, but I finally have had the chance to review this video. In doing so, I've come across what others are recording in the sky, the fast orbs. Do you expect me to call these birds? Not a chance. Also notice the even spacing, the shininess, the lack of moving wings, the temporary disappearances, etc. There are plenty of large craft in the sky in the video, and if you know what to look for, you can pick them out. But what I am focused on for this short video are these fast flying objects. Oh, and this cloud is normal. And focus on the smaller drones. For the general public, these are the easiest to discern in the clouds. Why? Though cloaked, they leave a small, tight signature, however fleeting. The job of these is to provide cover for the larger ones and to randomize the angled cloud patterns generated by the next size up. They dock to the larger ones, refuel, pop off, emit clouds, and redock. These fly at the rear of the larger ones, spinning, flipping, revolving around to churn the material emitted. They also fly in advance of the larger craft so that the fronts are not exposed. The signatures they leave are one of the first things I noticed. I called them fishbone clouds or spine clouds. It seems like these have at least two propulsion systems. One is a central engine to produce thrust and movement. The other runs along the back edge, emitting cloud material. Their movements are not very fluid, and that they move in spurts. Pop, pop, pop. That's what causes the straight, perpendicular cloud shapes along a central spine or thrust engine. The signatures of these craft themselves can be seen as either small delta-shaped clouds or as a delta-shaped cavity within a cloud. I've seen these uncloaked on several occasions with my naked eye, but just for a split second, before it retreats back into the cloud. These are dark gray, and I would guess between 5 to 10 feet across. This is how it works. It's been over a year since the craft made the mistake of appearing before me and my video camera. A lot has been learned since. I could spend the next year making more diagrammed videos to show you what is above us, but many of you out there are already doing just that. But time is something that is not abundant. They're going to have to play their cards at some point. So, instead, I'm going to back up a bit and reiterate a few points. It is apparent that we may have two opposing forces above our heads. If the forces are not opposing, we're screwed. One is probably the Navy. We've heard reports that that branch has been hijacked, controlled by the United Nations, or the New World Order, the Illuminati, Anunnaki, Rogue Chicken, and all of this. Many videos out there spotlight the smaller craft. They're the easiest to pick out. But it's the big one that is key. That one was the hardest for me to find, but you'd think it'd be the other way around. It's their scale which is almost unbelievable. There are plenty of reports out there about other massive craft that take up acres of land. Acres. And if we can see them now and know that they are there, so did the boys in brass, no matter who made them. Remember what I referred to as the shape, the back end of the large craft that gave it away. The sharp edges, the 90-degree angles. Does anything look familiar to you? Where have we seen this before? The F-117 and the B-2. Moreover, the large craft is similar to the shape of the SR-71. Haven't we heard of the continued development of the SR program? Remember the Phoenix lights? The direct flyovers were never debunked. I've even heard Sean David Morton, one of the first people to study Area 51, describe a huge shovel-nosed craft above him at one point. Whether it's made of stainless steel, transparent aluminum, mylar, I think we're all looking at the same type of craft, whether made by humans or not. Moreover, I've stated before that I was able to define the shape of the large craft before I really had time to dig into the documents and descriptions to track down names. But in December 2011, I knew this. The rear corner thrusters on both the platform aircraft and the next size down were square or rectangular. The square clouds led me right to them. And then I read a statement by Bob Lazar, one who claimed he worked at Area 51. Apparently, he was threatened with harm, have entered the atmosphere. But what I'm looking at is 1980s technology. To me, the smaller drones, bombs, attached to the aircraft carrier are the newest and lightest and the most acrobatic modern aircraft. Isn't there a nationwide shortage on helium currently? Again, as for the number of craft globally, it is still stunning. But maybe they didn't build them. Maybe they just grew them. Or maybe Zeus is real. Or both.